So, hello everyone. Thank you for you say tune in, but I guess it's just switching on YouTube. Today I'm joined by Mark Kempner, a good friend, and I first met Mark Kempner doing breakfast networking as we both go to the same group in Cheltenham. Mark is a fantastic actor, has been in sorts of all different wonderful roles. Eastenders quite recently, some of you might be pleased to know, is in The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher. One that I haven't seen for ages, but I know there's a lot of people interested in this particular program, is Wycliffe. So maybe you might mention a little bit of that later. So, Mark, the first question I'm going to ask, I've got some notes here, but just really, how did you get into acting?
Well, how long have we got? I started, my dad really got me into it. He was a very keen amateur dramatics actor. And I think I was about 8 when I played the part of Olaf in Undermilk Wood. And I had about 3 or 4 lines, I think. I can still remember them as well, but I'm not going to recite them in a Welsh accent. And I kind of got the bug from that. Also, our local village used to put on, we were farmers, and a very small little village, almost hamlet really, and we had a lovely old church, and the church used to stage nativity plays, and all the local farmers used to dress up as wise men, and I think my dad played Judas and one of the wise men as well. And I was a little Arab innkeeper's son, and we even had live donkeys there and all sorts. And I think I really got the bug from doing that and never really lost it, really. So sort of, as I grew older and grew up and left school, I did some amateur dramatics and what have you. And in the end, a very close friend of mine, she went to drama school quite late in life. And she said, I found a way we can get our equity cards, because at the time equity had changed it. And I'm going back, 24-ish years, I think. Equity had changed the rules on how equity cards could be earned, and they included you could do variety work. So my friend and I set up a children's entertainment little duo. I think we called ourselves Hansel and Gretel in nursery rhyme land, if I remember rightly. And I wrote a few sketches and what have you, and we built some screens, and we went to do children's parties. I think we had to get 12 contracts or something to get our provisional card, which we got. And I was able to drop the children's entertainment like a stone. And then I went on from there, really. So I did a year doing extra work and what have you. All this time I was still working as an engineer at Gatwick Airport. But finally, due to when the airport was privatised at Gatwick, all the airports in the country were privatised. Because I worked for the BAA, the British Airport Authority. And so I took an early redundancy, which slightly came out of the fact that I was at the time doing some roles on a Noel Edmonds show with Mr. Blobby. I wasn't playing Mr. Blobby, but he used to do these gotcha Oscars, and I had a bit of a regular spot on it. And it was filmed every Thursday. And then one Monday morning when I went into work, the chief engineer sent a call down for me. And I always knew I was in trouble when the chief engineer wanted to work with me. And he said, oh, my daughter saw you on Saturday on the Noel Edmonds show. And I said, oh, right. I'm feeling quite pleased that she'd see me. And he said, yeah, but he said, I phoned up the BBC this morning. I gather it's filmed on a Thursday. And I thought, uh-oh. And he showed me my timesheets, and he sort of held them up like that. And every Thursday for the last 12 weeks, I'd taken off sick. And in the end, he said, look, we're definitely going to privatise. So if this is the career you want, it would be a good chance for you to take the opportunity. So that's what I did. I left the airport and set up on my own and went into it full time after that.
So I'll be interested to know, because I do remember Noel's house party at Crinkley Bottom. If you tell me some of the more memorable sketches, the gotchas that you were involved in.
The most memorable and the funniest one, Noel set up Rosemary Ford, who used to host the Generation Game with Bruce Forsyth. And the story she was given, that she was going to present a sort of a Sunday night, vaguely religious, very harmless program, and be the presenter on it. And they set her up down in the West Country somewhere. I can't remember where it was now, but in the depths of the West Country. And all sorts went on that kept stopping the recording. It was quite a cold day, and me and about 4 other soldiers were with Noel in a tank over the other side of the hill. Meanwhile, she was interrupted by ramblers who were all played by actors. Then they had to cut and start the song again, and they were singing this song. I can't remember the song they were singing now, but it's quite a well-known song. Oh, it'll sing something new, something the whole day through. And it was all jolly jolly, but it kept having to be cut. Then a sheep farmer came in with a load of sheep and annoyed her. And poor Rosemary was trying to keep her cool. And the final thing was, coming over the hill was this tank, and we all came out. Noel was hidden with all this army scrim all over his face. And we said, oh, can we join in? Can we sing the song? And by this time she was singing, yeah, basically do what you like, let's just get it filmed. And then Noel revealed himself, and the secret was up. So I always remember that one. I think we did one on John McKerrick as well. I think we were in the audience as at an auction, and the auction kept going wrong. That was very funny. I remember that one. And I think we set up Mike Lamb as well. It was a lookalike show, because I used to play Groucho Marx, so there were all these lookalikes there, including a Noel Edmonds lookalike who was rubbish, and the award went to him, and we were all booing away and saying it's a fix. So poor old Mike Lamb was there thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? So there were all sorts of things we got up to on that show. It was great fun.
So I mean, I'll talk about Groucho Marx later, but something that we've talked about before might be interesting for people listening is that something I didn't realize is that you would be called onto game shows to do like a test before the general public were brought in. Generation Games springs to mind. The other ones that you were involved in?
Yeah, I got to know Bruce Forsyth quite well through I used to help rehearse the Generation game, and me and another actor would be there, and we would play the game just in just the same way the contestants would. We weren't warned what was happening, but when we played them through, there were adjustments made, and Bruce would make adjustments, said I think that should be there rather than there, or let's cut that bit, or blah blah blah. And then we would be asked after, what, how did you feel about it if you were asked to play that game? Did you feel awkward, or would you enjoy it more if we did something else? So that was quite good fun. Although there was a time when we were doing, they said to me and this other actress that you're going to be morning television presenters. And so we started off, we were looking at the camera just like I'm looking down my webcam here, and Rosemary Ford kept putting in cue cards, but they had an auto cue as well, so we were doing it fairly well between us, just reading what was up on the auto cue. And then I had to introduce Bruce Forsyth, so Rosemary Ford held this big card up and she said, male presenter, introduce Bruce Forsyth. So I said, oh, ladies and gentlemen, I've got to stop you there, so because we now have a special guest. Please welcome Mr. Bruce Forsyth. And he came on and he said, well, is that it? Is that it? Is that the best you could do? Give you a bigger build up. And that was fun. I particularly enjoyed doing that. What was the other show I used to got involved with? Oh, it was Game with Him. Play Your Cards Right. We used to stand in guests as pretend guests on that while they rehearsed it through. Bruce was very he liked things absolutely 100%. So if a prop was going to be there, he needed to know who was putting it there, why it was there, and when it was, so he could reach it without any problems at all. So that's what we were there for, really. But money for old rope, really, just mucking about.
Vaughn just said hi, so I'm just saying good evening back to her. So I know that you're also involved in other programs as well that would be game shows with celebrities, and there was an interesting, I can't remember what the name of the program was, where you had to pretend you were an Italian chef or something like that. Can you explain that one, please?
Yeah, no, that was I got rung up actually by the producer, who somehow knew about me and my events company, or had seen us or something, I don't know, doing one of our murder mysteries. He said, I think you'd be good on this show, which was called Odd One In, presented by Bradley Walsh. And he said, for this scenario, I don't know if just to explain the scenario of the show, is that they would have 4 actors and 1 real person. And then they had celebrity guests, 2 one side, 2 the other. And they would interview us, and they had to work out who was the real person. And the scenario that I was involved with, I was playing a Greek salesperson, and they had to work out who was the real Greek. So there was some guy who was dressed up, I can't remember really, but he was dressed up in very odd clothing, and another guy was dressed up like a Greek gladiator, and there was me as this sort of slightly grubby kebab salesperson, and we had the real guy, some guy, Nigel, friend of mine, another actor from Essex. We're all putting on these dodgy Greek accents, but I managed to fool the audience, and I think one of them chose me in the end, but of course it wasn't me. But that was good fun. That was great fun.
So I mentioned Groucho Marx earlier, and you're one of the only few lookalikes for Groucho Marx in this country.
Lookalike. I mean, look, I've got no flipping hair left to do it now. I put myself a wig, but I have played him a couple of times in the last 3 or 4 years, just for odd things locally in Cheltenham. But no, I used to get a lot of that. How that came about, my agent at the time had put me up for a commercial, which was an insurance company, and we were all lined up. It was famous, iconic figures of the past who had died, and we were all lining up to get into heaven. And St. Peter was there going, no, no, coming down with his clipboard, no, no. And the person who bought such and such insurance was allowed in, and we all had to go away. So my agent said, I think you'd be good for Groucho Marx. I said, why do you think that? Well, my dad always thought I'd make a good Groucho Marx when I was younger. So, yeah, many. But he said, no, he said, I've got your, actors always have photos with their agencies and that. I did in those days anyway. And he said, no, I've been drawing moustaches on your photographs. I said, oh, thanks very much. They said, I think you'd be perfect. So I looked up a few of his gags, and I watched a few of the Marx Brothers films, went up for the audition, bowled in. Luckily for me, the director was there and the client was there, and it was a relatively full audition room, had a bit of an audience, and I went in and cracked a few Groucho gags, went up to the director and said, I never forget a face, but in your case I'm going to make an exception, and all this. And it went down a storm, and but even before we started the audition, the director said, all right, you got the gig. So I turned up there, and they made me up then. They put on the black makeup, because he didn't wear a real moustache. It was just makeup and eyebrows, and they supplied all the suit and everything. And when I got there, I met Sir Winston Churchill, Marilyn Monroe, loads of famous lookalikes from the past, and they were all talking about their trips to Europe and Australia, and they've done this advert and that advert, and they said, oh, we haven't seen you on the circuit. And I said, this is a whole new world to me, this lookalike circuit. I didn't know such a thing existed. So after the shoot, I went out and got myself a Groucho costume and put it on my website, and he's been very good to me. I've done stuff all over the world as Groucho. So
fantastic. Well, you mentioned Winston Churchill, and you've played Winston Churchill quite recently, reading out his speeches at Blenheim Palace. How did that one come about?
Right, that was a contact. I mean, listen, everything in this business is who you know. I have a great friend who is a fight director for the RSC up at Stratford, and one of the directors there at Blenheim Palace had to put on a show at Blenheim Palace. So they were doing some mock fighting and duels and that between 2 or 3 actors, and Blenheim Palace wanted to do a thing called the finest hour, and of course Blenheim Palace being so synonymous with Churchill, being as he was born there and everything, so they wanted to do this sort of little presentation called the finest hour, and they wanted a Churchill, not just a lookalike, they wanted an actor to play him, to read through some of his more famous, iconic speeches. So we included what I kept referring to as best hits, and me and the director put in a bit of dialogue as well. The director wrote some extra dialogue to link the speeches together. And it was last year, so it was right in the middle of that really hot weather. So by the time they put a fat suit on me and a big jacket and waistcoat and shirt and the hat and everything, the sweat was pouring off me. And we had a lectern, and we placed it just to the right of the steps of the main house. And if you've ever been to Blenheim Palace, that caused a kind of an echo through this old-fashioned microphone. So it was really realistic. It sounded just as though Churchill was there giving a speech to the crowd. So I just sort of went round the house a bit in between speeches, drumming up an audience and going round as Churchill, having endless photos taken of me with guests and saying, I'm going to be making a speech out on the steps, and you'll be very welcome to come along at 3 o'clock, next presentation. And we used to get crowds of 30 to 40 people would gather, and then I'd address the crowd. They loved it. That was great fun.
Fantastic. I mean, you've been doing a lot for a long time, and I'd be interested about some comedy that you did in Israel. You said you were involved in a group in Israel. What that involved?
Yeah, that was before I turned professional. I went to Israel to work on a kibbutz for a year. What was I? About 18, I think, or 17 when I went. I'd been hitching around Europe and what have you, and then my sister had been in Israel in '69 and did a year on the same kibbutz, and some people she was friends with were visiting, and we met up with them in London, and I went up there as well, and a week later I was on the plane going home with them back to Israel, and ended up staying there a year working on a kibbutz as a volunteer. And there were at any one time about 20-ish, I think, volunteers from all over the world there. And the kibbutz used to hold on Friday nights. We used to hold events. Sometimes there'd be little comedy things to do, or just parties and what have you. And I put together a few sketches on one night, and that went down really well, taking the mickey out of the Israelis and the residents of the kibbutz. And then we got asked by another kibbutz if we do it there, so we did that, and then we went to another one and did it there. So it was almost the forming of a little comedy troupe, really, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that was like grounding for what came later on before you turned professional. What do you think you really learnt from being involved in a group like that?
Well, any live performance is a great teaching aid. I mean, I confess I never trained as an actor. I didn't do the drama school route. I wanted to, but my parents were farmers, and I left school. I went to a very creative Steiner School, and I was much more interested in the acting and metalwork and woodwork and anything creative rather than getting on with the academic subjects. And we used to do an end of term leaving play, or an end of when we were 16 and before you went into the upper school. But I left there at 16 because I didn't get any O levels, and I was desperate to do some go to drama school. My cousin was already at RADA, and there was talk about going there, but my parents wanted me to work on the farm, and acting being a dodgy business to get into. So one thing and the other, I just sort of bowled into farming, and then ended up traveling around Europe a bit, and then ended up in Israel, and came back, worked for my dad a bit, and then drifted into engineering and just did amateur dramatics really, rather than go to drama school. I've forgotten completely now what your question was. What did I learn?
No, what do you learn from that? Yeah, the experience. That was a good answer, and something which I don't know if we spoke about, but I went to a Steiner School as well. I don't know if we've spoken about that before. No. So that's quite interesting. We both went to one.
That explains why you are like you are and why
I am. Absolutely. But I mean, when I was at Steiner School, they would actually encourage drama. And what I found, I don't know if you found the same experience, is that they would persuade you to go and follow what you're really good at. So if you're brilliant at woodwork, they would really encourage you that, rather than, well, woodwork is not maths and arithmetic and all those sorts of things. So yeah, which was good. So yeah, wow.
Their beliefs are that if you're good at something, do that, and if you particularly enjoy doing something, then do that, which I don't altogether agree with looking back. Now I'm older, but their way. But of course it was absolutely fantastic for me. All I wanted to do was act and muck about, and I was able to participate in doing that. But woodwork and metalwork I did enjoy, so I suppose those are the two subjects I did excel at, which became useful in later life. But yeah, but doing live entertainment, I reckon I've learnt more than any drama school will ever teach me. And particularly with my own events company, I know we're coming on to that. We've done so many. I think I've done about 1,200 murder mystery nights, ridiculously, over about 24 years. And just working with a live audience, yes, we've got a bit of a script, but you never quite know what's coming back. Luckily, I'm quite a good ad-libber, so I can dig my way out of a few holes. I've had to on stage many a time. I remember being in the play The Crucible, and it was opening night, and we had a full house. And I don't know if you know, but The Crucible is in 4 acts. So the first half of the show is Act 1 and Act 2. Then there's an interval, and then Act 3 and Act 4. And in Act 2, in Act 3 and 4, I'm featuring heavily as the judge. There's this massive courtroom scene. The whole cast is on stage. They're all relaxed because they've all been on stage in Acts 1 and 2. And the interval's gone by. All right, here we go. Opening night, packed house. And the director was right at the back, and I could see just at the back, I could make out his sort of outline. And in there's this big argument going on, big courtroom scene. In I go to take full control. I'm walking up and down and giving out all orders and absolutely in full command. And I made that desperately. I learned a big lesson here. Never assume it's going well, because that's what I did. I just switched off just for a momentary second and thought, it's going awfully well. And then it all went very quiet. And I thought, oh dear, someone's forgot the line. I expect I'll have to dig them out of it. It'll be down to me. And then I realized, oh God, it's me. Right at that moment, I couldn't have told you my name, let alone what the next line was. Oh God, it was so tough. And I was walking up and down again. Yes, well, no, yes. And I went up to each of the main characters, said, now, Mary Warren, before I continue, I think you should, is there anything you wish to say that will guide me further? I.e., what's my bloody line? And so I have naught to add. We all remain perfectly in character. This seemed to go on for about 10 minutes. And I remember glancing up at the director, and I could see his outline going, oh my God. Okay. And I narrowed it down to 2 lines that I think it's this line, and I sort of flipped a coin in my head and went for it. And there seemed to be quite a sigh of relief. And we kept going. But so yeah, I learned a big lesson that night. Never stay in character and concentrate at every single second. But,
funny enough, one of my friends, Mark, he acted in that at school, The Crucible, and he forgot some lines. I don't know if he played the same part. He had to do an eating scene in The Crucible, and they gave him a bowl of tuna, basically tuna mayonnaise for him to be eaten. Yeah. And they kept putting it away, and by the last night, it had completely gone off. And I think just because of the stench of it, he forgot his smell. But what I've always found interesting, and what you, yeah, what I thought is that I don't know if it's Crucible. I think there's like quite a big eating scene in The Crucible. There's other things. How do you get round eating in a scene without spitting food over everybody?
Eating scenes are a nightmare on stage, because you have to eat naturally, otherwise it looks as though you're just sort of holding your knife and fork like this, waiting for your line. So you have to keep eating. You put very little in your mouth for a start, and you can get away with that. And when you sort of talk like this, and you know, it looks as though you're eating. bearing in mind, listening out for when it's your line. And the last thing you want, of course, is to have a mouthful of food when it's your line. Otherwise, you're, oh, well, that's all right. So it's all about timing, really, and rehearsing it and thinking to yourself, right, I've got a few lines, so I can afford to take a mouthful here, and I can. So you just time it all, really. That's what it's all about. Yeah. But it's yeah, you have to watch. You're not spitting over everyone, everything as well.
So what I like, and I'm sure people will be interested, is your murder mystery. You briefly touched on your murder mystery events that you put on. What I like about it is that you involve the audience as well. So yeah, a bit more about your murder mystery would be wonderful to hear, please.
Right. Well, the murder mysteries that we do are scripted shows. They're almost like 3-act plays. They're only short acts. So a vast majority of murder mystery entertainment is actors come on, perform maybe a little scene, or a detective will host it and say, well, this has happened, that's happened. And then the actors just wander around the tables and the audience ask them direct questions. And the actors ad lib around that, and that's how they eventually solve it. And they're given clues along the way, etc. So we came up with the idea. I actually took the company over from a friend of mine, but we do a 3-act comedy scripted show. Lots of ad libbing. It's almost sort of panto, really, and the content of the script involves a murder just at the end of Act 1, just before the main course, or it might come at the end of the main course or whatever. But by then, of course, the audience will have seen the relationships between the various characters. And then in Act 2, the show carries on. And before they have their dessert course, we hand them out report forms to all the tables. And they have to work out who done it, how and why from everything they've seen and heard us do. But along the way, as I say, there's heaps of ad-libbing. And we also, at the start of Act 2, we pretend there's been a disaster backstage and we've lost a main actor or a main actress. They've fallen out. What we're going to do? And the compere is normally, I have a little thing going with the compere where he will say, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, I don't know. I think we're just going to have to say sorry and thank you very much. Unless we could get 2 people in the audience to play the characters. And then, of course, it becomes like and all of this noisy audience, they always go, oh no, they'll start looking down. Then I always say, I always pick the ones that are looking down and look up again. So as if we're doing it for a company, I would have, in the pre-planning of the event, say, you know, if you want to nominate a male and female member of your company that will play the characters, and then we do it with cue cards. And again, I learned that off the Generation game, really, is where I got the idea from. They had you know, Bruce Forsyth used to do, one of the last games was all the actors' lines, the guests, you know, the contestants' lines were either written on a shirt sleeve or whatever, or on cue cards. So we made up cue cards and got 2 people up. We gave them a bit of costume, and they took on the role of a character each that they would have seen being played in Act 1. And to great hilarity. And sometimes I say to the company, you know, if they want any in-jokes put into that cue card scene, we'll do that. And sometimes I've just rewritten the whole cue card scene, you know. I mean, it's normally got absolutely damn all to do with the murder mystery, but it sometimes takes precedence at times. But a lot of these guys, they come up, and the ladies too, they get thoroughly stuck into it, and it's their chance to really shine for the company. The company is watching their own people doing it. It goes down extremely well. So brilliant. It's quite a straightforward thing to run, really. But I remember mentioning it once to Bruce Forsyth when he knew I'd had murder mysteries on the go and what have you, and was doing them at the time. And I said, we're nicking this. I said, no, do it. He said, oh, good idea. Marvellous. So, yeah, it had his say so. You go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, it also gives a lot of pleasure to everybody there at the time. And you're thinking about putting them on Zoom and having online events. So that would be really good for people to know about how they can get both those.
Yeah, I've been a bit lax in getting this started, really, because obviously we've been stricken with COVID now since March. And a lot of, well, we're not actually just a murder mystery company. We do other events as well.
Yeah.
But a lot of the murder mystery companies, I thought many years ago, I was thinking we could do an online murder mystery. That would be really good. And then sort of didn't really progress with the idea. But then what these other companies have done, they've decided to take their murder mysteries online. I don't know exactly how they're doing it. I've got my idea of how I'm going to do it. I don't want to just copy what other people do. And I think they use Zoom or whatever as a platform. But I've got lots of good ideas on how we can do that with my actors. It also means the actors never have to leave home. They can do it from home, and they only need costume from there up. And we can set them up with green screens and all this kind of thing. So yeah, I'm sort of formulating ideas in my head on how to do that, and that can be open to anyone who wants to pay for a ticket to join in and try and solve the crime. So you know, as a company, we're very used to writing things like that. So I think it worked quite well. But I should have really sort of pulled my finger out and done it earlier, because a lot of companies are doing it online now. But that doesn't matter.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the quality that people want to go for. But Trueview Events isn't just murder mystery. No. If you can say all the other wonderful things that Trueview Events do.
Oh, goodness me. We've pulled off some stunts in the past. I'm amazed I've not been arrested yet. One of my main events, where we do murder mystery nights, which I've just explained how we do them. We also do murder mystery days, where I think I've written about 40 of these things, where we write a plot based on the venue. So generally a venue will be a manor house, hotel or something like that in the country, and the client will be a company that's going to have a conference the next day, or they've had their conference the day before, and then we lay on a murder mystery day. So we split the audience, the company, into teams. I always play the same detective, Inspector Crust, West Country detective. I started doing this before I lived in the West Country as well, so a draw, obviously. But we have 4 other actors, two actresses, 2 actors play the suspects, split them into teams, the client, and then they literally grill the suspects all throughout the day. I mean, I try and rotate them all around, and I kind of coordinate all of that. But the murder mystery is actually written and based on the venue, which makes it quite realistic. We don't take in a generic script plot and try and make it fit in any old hotel. I actually write each one on an individual basis. And so it could be that Lady Frobisher was sitting by in the piano room and said she never saw the vicar because she was busy by the piano. But if the people solving it go to the piano, they will notice that there's a window, and she could have got a secret signal from the vicar.
Good.
And then else will reveal that the vicar was seen out there at 3:10 just before the murder happened the day before. So there's things like that, and they get completely engrossed. The teams get absolutely engrossed in it. You think they're trying to solve a real murder mystery at times.
I'm sure I'd be like that too.
My first one we did at a hotel in Eastbourne, and it was almost like a murder mystery weekend, but it was condensed into it was on a Saturday and then finished off on a Sunday morning. And I wrote this plot about a missing Fabergé egg based in this crummy hotel in Eastbourne. There we were doing it all, and it was all going very well. And then one of the it's just sort of a couple of anecdotes about what can go wrong with these murder mysteries. One of the contestants came up to me and said, found the Fabergé egg, and he had in his hand this beautifully made prop. It wasn't a real one, obviously, but it was a beautifully made Fabergé egg prop. Oh, so I said, oh right, I see. And there I was as a detective. I see, right. And where did you find that exactly, sir? Oh, well, we found it in the piano. It had been hidden in the piano. And I thought, I've got to be one of my actors winding me up. So went round and had a word with it. No, we don't know anything about that. But this guy was convinced that he found it, and he was on the road to solving the plot. Well, one of the members of public that turned up to play it had decided because I said you're coming to a murder mystery weekend, it's the missing Fabergé egg and who died and blah blah blah, who was killed, and his own Fabergé. He went to the trouble of making a Fabergé egg, him and his wife, and hid it just to put off everybody else.
Oh no.
Quite a bit of ad-libbing around, and then he became quite a fan of us. He came to several of our murder mystery shows at hotels in and around London, so we formed a friend there. But that was very funny. One other story which was quite funny, we were doing a murder mystery day down in just outside of Brighton in Sussex, in East Sussex, a little village called Stenning, and lovely old hotel, and a beautiful sort of hill at the back and a church at the top. And I always have a vicar, because vicars always feature in murder mysteries. And anyway, the day was going really well, and the teams kept coming back to me and said, no, the vicar said that we were all the suspect had been seen drunk in the church, having a birthday party in the church. I thought, what? Where on earth did you get that from? And I thought, the actor playing the vicar, David, I'll kill him. What's he telling them that for? That wasn't in the plot. So I found him, and he said, no, I haven't said that. Turned out it was the real vicar. He was getting really stuck into this day, and he was going, no, I think they had a birthday party. And he found me, and he said, I've been telling them they've been having a birthday party in the church the day before. Oh, right, vicar, all right then, thank you very much. If do that would be lovely. To sort of be polite as we were using their church, but it was very
absolutely. Susan joined in, and I put a message up earlier, but just want to say hi to Susan. So it seems like a lot of fun can be had. You have told me this story before, but I'd love to hear it again, because I find it quite funny, about you being on stage. I'm not sure what the play was, but you were supposed to drink a glass of whiskey at the end, and the props decided to have a bit of fun with that.
Oh yes, God, I'm trying to remember the play that was. I had to drink this whiskey. It wasn't right at the end, but it was during. And props, for a bit of a joke, had put in real whiskey. And very naughty. They shouldn't have done it. But as I took a sip, I thought, oh my God. And I'm playing this guy that was actually getting quite drunk. Keep downing it. Oh, let's have another one, you see. And I thought, oh no. And yeah, it was real whiskey. So I was quite tipsy by the end of it. But yeah, I did give props a bit of a telling off on that, though. It was the last night, so we would have a rule among actors: no last night jokes. But anyway, I think we were tired after a long tour, so they decided to have the lot. You know, I'd probably been winding them up throughout the tour, and they got their own back on me. Couldn't prop up.
Well, we haven't really spoken much about your film or television work. So any film and television jobs that really spring out to mind for you?
Well, I got into, I mean, my interest as an actor was always going to be doing TV and film more than theatre. I did a lot of theatre when I first went professional. I did a lot of fringe shows in London, and all the White Bear, the Old Red Lion, and the Angel. I've done all these pub theatres, and I kind of thought, well, I've cut my teeth on all of this stuff. I really want to get into doing film and TV. And what actually happened was, a lady brought across, an actress, she brought across from America an idea where they would have casting evenings, where they had about 10 or 12 actors and actresses who prepared monologues to be performed in a kind of a showy format in front of casting directors, producers and agents. And she brought the idea over and called it the casting couch. And you had to audition to get into it. And luckily I applied for that and got into it, where I got my agent from. And that's what really got me going then. There was casting directors there, and there was a producer there. In fact, an agent came up to, well, about 3 or 4 agents offered me their cards. I chose one and signed up with them. And someone had been there watching that show as well. And they got chatting, and that's how I got my first TV role, whatever it was. I can't remember exactly now. But just a couple of lines in something. But ones that, did you ask what was the question? What
yeah, so someone's really spring out to mind, some roles that you've loved.
there's been a lot in many for many different reasons. Eastenders actually is a memorable one for me, because it was a lot of lines. In fact, I had the most dialogue of anyone in the show for that episode. And that was great fun. It was really, although the first time I did EastEnders, I had a bit of a Crucible moment, which was about 15 years ago, I think. I had a small scene with Billy, delivering some fairly mind-blowing news, and I was playing this electrical contractor, and there I was, and it's relatively inexperienced as far as, you know, being in a major show like EastEnders. And although I'd done lots of little bits on various programs, this was it sort of consumed me a bit. I thought, God, flipping heck, getting close now to actually shooting the scene. Very quick run through and a quick line run, and the director said, right, we'll do it all in one hit. I'm not going to split it up. We'll do it all in one go. You don't mind doing that, do you, Mark? I said, no problem. Thinking, oh, glad I've learned this. Anyway, so we start off, right, stand by everybody, and action, which is me knocking on the door. Billy comes to the door. He opened the door, and the camera's right on me, and I'm looking down this camera now, and I thought, can't remember what I say. Sorry about that. The door, and you could sense all the crew and the director up in the gallery going, oh, no, this is going to take forever. So I gave myself a big slap round the face, and you know, started to concentrate a bit more on the character, and we did it 2 or 3 times, and it was absolutely fine. But so I think yeah, about, was it 18 months ago, I did EastEnders. I did a big episode where all my scenes were opposite Cat, played by Jesse, and that was really good fun. You know, I'd learnt that inside out, and one of the scenes was quite a long monologue, you know, which I had to learn. Luckily as well, we did the first few scenes on one day, then I had a day off, and then the last 3 or 4 scenes, so I was able to have a day in between to go over what was coming the next day. So that was a memorable thing. I think others I remember for different reasons. I was saying, I mean, I was in a film with Dustin Hoffman, and I thought, I've made it. This was quite a few years ago. This is a typical scenario, what happens to actors. Just me and Dustin. I was playing the taxi driver. I've played about 12 taxi drivers since then. But playing a taxi driver, having a full-on face-to-face argument with Dustin Hoffman. And I was introduced to him when I arrived on the set, and taken to this enormous Winnebago, and the little fella's in there, and he said, hey, let's have a chat. Let's have a chat. And he said, let's not do lines. Let's just improvise this argument. I said, okay. And luckily, I'm quite a good improviser, so I was quite happy to do that, because you don't have to remember lines as much. You just see what happens. And he's very into doing that. And this scene just grew and grew and grew. And it is the longest camera track I've ever seen. And we're in my cab, and he's in the back, and he's face-to-face arguing with me as the camera comes down. It just rests on the pair of us, nose to nose, having this screaming match. Brilliant. I thought, I've made it. This is it. This is going right at the front of the show reel. And when I went up to the studio about 2 weeks after shooting it to do some ADR, which is just cleaning up some lines. So you watch a video, and as the marker's going across the screen, you say your line, and they insert that into the final edit, so they get a clean version of the line in case it wasn't so clean on the day, or there was a recording glitch or whatever. And I said, where's the big argument scene? And the director said, yeah, he said, I decided I'm going to cut that, because I think it just makes the edit work better and flow better if we're on, because Dustin Hoffman's trying to meet up with Emma Thompson. He's promised her he'll be there, and he promises on his life he won't let her down. And of course he gets caught in this traffic jam in this cab, and there's nothing I can do about it. And he said, I think it's better we just see Emma looking at her watch. And I thought, well, I don't. And Dustin was really pleased with you. He said he loved doing the scene with you. But no, I think unfortunately, when you film things, they always over film, and things just have to go. And that was one of the scenes that went. But that always stuck in my mind. I learned, and you can't count on the fact that you're going to be necessarily in the final cut of anything. As they say, you end up on the cutting room floor. But that was a big memory. Other memories, I don't know. You've caught me on the hop there, Paul. I can't think of others. So many different things happen for so many different reasons, you know. I suppose the last thing I did really was quite memorable. It was because of COVID. Shot by the BBC for Apple TV. It's a sitcom that comes out next year, or the second series comes out next year. And I was in a nice scene with Rafe Spall and Esther Smith, again playing another cab driver. And it's quite a big scene. I can't give the game away or tell you what's happening, but I had to go for a COVID test on the Wednesday and the Friday before shooting, which I did and passed those. And then on the Tuesday on the set, had to have another one. So it was ultra safe. I mean, talk about the safest place to be is on a film set at the moment. Well, COVID, very, very cautious, and they were brilliant how they got around that. But unfortunately, it started raining. We couldn't do this big scene for a variety of reasons. Things got delayed, and we couldn't do it, so it got cancelled. So we had to go through the whole process again 3 weeks later. 2 more COVID tests the week before, and another one on the set again. But luckily, that was a sunny day, and we were able to knock the scene out. Luckily. But that was quite memorable.
Oh, one thing which is memorable to me, it was actually over a year ago now, only just over a year, you were on Not Going Out Live, the Christmas special they put out, and the actress had a bit of almost a dry. She managed to get round it, but she was looking a bit terrified at the time. So she spoke to you before going on, didn't she?
Poor Sally. Yeah, that was Lee Mack's Not Going Out, and it went out live, literally, and just in the wings before going on, Lee introduced us all and warmed the audience up a bit, which he's very good at. And then we were ready to go, and it had to start dead on time, and it had to end dead on time, because Mrs. Brown's Boys was coming in regardless at 9:30. We were told. We started at 9:30. Mrs. Brown's Boys is definitely going on. So a lot of pressure on Lee Mack going from scene to scene on all the main actors, really, to get it absolutely right. So a big rehearsal sequence. I think we did about 2.5 weeks of rehearsals for that. And yeah, Sally was getting quite nervous, and she sort of touched my arm and looked at me and went, "Oh my God." And I said, "Go on, you'll be all right, don't worry, you'll be fine." And she went on, and she had a slight dry, but Lee just ad-lib round it, and it got a great big laugh, and she just relaxed and was brilliant. Yeah, a lot of pressure, flipping heck. I only had about 4 lines in that, dressed as a Christmas turkey, and totally confident about doing it, because I must have done it about 50,000 times during rehearsals. And when it came to my bit, I still managed to cock up slightly one line. I managed to get out of it. It didn't really matter, and it still got the laugh. But it's suddenly those moments when you think, "Oh my God, we'll get it right now." It nearly threw me, but managed to fluke my way out of it.
I didn't notice that mistake at all when you say it, but or would it be saying I wouldn't know if I hadn't seen it?
After party after, he said, "You nearly buggered that up, didn't you?" Oh, Lee, don't worry about that. But no, it was fine. We got away with it.
So if anybody here does have any questions they want to ask Mark, then please just put them in. I'll get them up for us both to see. If you're just enjoying watching, I'll just continue chatting with Mark. A role that I really like that you play, and I also like the series, is the Suspicions of Mr. Witcher. So I think that's one of your favourite parts you've played, or yeah.
Yeah, that was opposite Paddy Considine, who's one of my favourite actors. And I auditioned and played the part of this dodgy geezer. It was a bit like Fagin, although the director kept saying, "I don't want Fagin, I just want this dodgy pawnbroker." And so I managed to remove Fagin from my initial thoughts and do as he said. And that was great fun, yeah, because it was a big set. There were two main scenes I was in. There was an outdoor set, and it had quite a few, about 30 or 40 extras walking through. I think it's set in London, presumably. It starts off with him catching me coming out of my shop, and he sets me up. He wants to know where a special gold chain had come from, and blah blah blah, and says there'll be a little something in it for you. And the director was very good. because quite often the directors will have the final say with the editor on which bits. They normally concentrate the camera on the main actor, but the director was very generous to me on that one. I think my last line in that first scene was, "Sounds interesting, Mr. Witcher," and the camera was right on me, and it was lots of makeup and all the Dickensian kind of moustache and sideburns and all that kind of thing. And then doing the scene with Paddy in the second scene was quite a dark, sinister sort of scene, and that was good. So when you're opposite sort of well-known or just any actor that's really good at their trade, like Paddy is, who's brilliant, and involved as part of the team on that day, might have only been for one day, but I was very much an instrumental figure in that scene and in that story. And so you're treated very well from the point of view. It's a two-way process. It's not just all about him. So that for me, I get a big kick out of that, whether it be just a small play, whatever. I don't mind if you've got that working relationship with a cast member or cast members. That's what I get out of acting. That's what I really like, that whole process.
There'll be people that, I don't know if they're watching live, but will watch this at some point, including my mum and a few others, that won't forgive me if I don't ask you about the role you had in Doctor Who when you were with Peter Capaldi. So if you can say about that, and also it was his new role to the Doctor, and do you still get fan mail from people for that part you had?
Last week, had one. My agent just saves them up now and sends them on. It's remarkable. I had about 4 lines in that, playing a handsome cab driver. An old-fashioned taxi driver, and with horses in front of me, although it was all cleverly filmed where the horses were taken out when I was on the carriage, or I think someone was holding the horses in front of me. And yeah, it was Peter Capaldi's first one, and I knew the director, Ben Wheatley, was directing that, so had a bit of a head start at audition stage for that one. Yeah, it was raining heavily. It was a massive outdoor scene, full film crew now on Doctor Who, and it's like a major movie set, and we just kept waiting for the rain to stop, so they plumped me and Peter in a little cottage nearby to keep dry where the makeup was and what have you. And I just sat down with him for about 2 hours, yakking away about the business, and we both knew people on either side of the camera in the business, and it was his first episode, and I said to him, I said, "How do you feel about taking on the role of Doctor Who?" And he said, "Well, quite concerned about it, really. I hope the fans like me." And it dawned on me that added pressure, obviously is in every scene, but it's also the pressure of carrying a massive role like Doctor Who for however many series they did with him. And of course, you know, the fans are just, they remember every single full stop. And I keep being sent pictures of the scene that they've freeze frozen, either on YouTube or off my reel or whatever, and then they send me those pictures, say, would I sign it, and would you say this, and would you say that? So, long letters. And one, I remember someone said, "Well, I'm going to sit down and watch it again with my daughter, and we're thinking you have pizza. If you were watching it, what pizza would you have?" All I don't know, the whatever pizza, you know. And I wrote that down, and you sign it and send it back. But yeah, I've had quite a few of those from that. And also you get quite a few from, I did a small role playing the Bowles Manor in This Country, which is shot in the Cotswolds, and that's had a massive popularity thing. So I'm involved on all sorts of web chats with the cast, with a couple of guys who do web chats a bit similar to this, and they've interviewed me and interviewed all the cast members, and we've had an evening with Daisy and Charlie's parents on stage, and I went along and took my guitar along and played there and all that kind of thing. So just sometimes, you know, I've always think to myself, there's no such thing as a small role, there's only small actors, so every role is important. And over the years, the repeat fees are quite nice when they come in as well.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, I'm not going to put it on the screen, but I'll just say to Susan, no problem at all. That's absolutely fine. But I won't put that on the screen for people to see. Now, television has certainly changed over the years. I've seen lots of DVDs and the DVD extras of programs where television more used to be theatrical. It was like theatre in the home. There was also a lot of time pressure to get things done. Were you involved much with television when there was that real time pressure, like literally you've got to get it in this take, if we haven't got it, it's not going in the can, to speak?
No, not really. Funny enough, only this morning I noticed the old Tales of the Unexpected things are on Sky Arts. I've been recording them. I used to love those because they have quite big named actors in the day were involved, and they were relatively theatrical. And I think that some of those, I'm not sure some of those were done live, but if you go right back to Z Cars and things like that, a lot of them were shot live. Huge pressure. I know they've done Eastenders live a couple of times, haven't they? I think Coronation Street did a live one. Massive pressure on the crew and the cast to get that right, because if you cock up, you've had it. There's nowhere to hide. Just like being on stage. Is that what you meant? That kind of thing? No. Yeah. Apart from that Lee Mack, I've never done any majorly live TV. I suppose there were a couple of stunts on the Noel Edmonds show that we did live in front of a live audience. Had to get those right. But no, not really.
The other thing which I meant as well is that in the late 80s, I think like a lot of television, BBC, ITV, worked till 10 o'clock in the evening, and then literally if the take wasn't in the can by then, it would go off. They would just pull the plug because you'd have the union getting all upset about it. I wondered if you'd been in roles that had that sort of time pressure on you at all to get it done and dusted.
I did a commercial once for another insurance company, who can remain nameless, directed by someone who became a very big director, famous director, and that went on and on and on. I was lying in bed, and all these bills are coming around me that I wasn't able to pay because I hadn't taken out proper insurance as a hospital patient. I was playing a hospital patient. And that commercial went on and on and on. We started shooting that about 8 o'clock in the morning, and that didn't finish till 1 o'clock the following morning. That was a nightmare, but they have to get that in the can. So in answer to your question, yeah, there are time restraints, but generally they will shoot until they've got everything. Outdoor scenes are quite tricky because you start losing the light. That can be tricky. So there is pressure on the actors to get it all done and right as soon as you can, because otherwise that will hold things up. And of course, going back again to Lee Mack not going out, or any of those TV programs that are done live, they have to be to the second. There's no mucking about. And we were told in no uncertain terms, Mrs. Brown's Boys is starting dead on 9:30, regardless of where you are and however well it's going through. So every scene is timed with a stopwatch to the second. But then of course you've got to allow for the audience laughter as well. So it's quite a clever process, but luckily as an actor you just get told what to do, and that's other people's problems. All we've got to do is say the lines and get it right.
We've got Susan asking here, how is filming in front of a live audience different from being on stage in front of a live audience? So how is it different?
Yeah, it is different. It's different because there's a studio audience, and then right in front of that studio audience there's hundreds of cameras, and they're all sat up high on cranes, and there's boom mics and all lights and all this kind of thing. So that's quite different. But although you're sort of on stage you're playing to a live audience, you're actually playing to the live audience, not the audience necessarily that's watching in the studio. You're playing to the live audience behind the cameras, i.e. people in their homes. So that's a bit different, I guess, and requires quite a bit of concentration because it can be quite confusing, and it can be quite tempting to play to the audience there, because I can see them and almost touch them, but actually you've got to play to the audience that's watching from home. So I guess that's the main difference, and the pressure that you're under, of course. But I think probably if I mean, I love doing TV and film, but if I had to play to a live audience, I'd rather play to a live theatre audience. I think I feel more in control of that.
Absolutely. What type of directors do you like? Because I hear so many different actors. Some actors prefer a director that is very direct and say, this is how I want you to play it, and go back. Other actors tend to like directors that just kind of say, well, you know the character, just do it. What do you prefer from a director?
A bit of both. I like a director who gives you a bit of carte blanche to bring what you want to the role, as long as it's all within the parameters of what he or she has in mind. So yeah, I don't like being directed by numbers. And I mean by that, you say this line there, then you say that line there, and say it like this. And you know, and it can be quite restricted. I have been directed in an advert I made by a German theatre, a German TV company, production company, and they were all lovely, but the director just drove me mad. He was trying to get me to do things which were ridiculous in this commercial, and he wouldn't let you do anything of your own. It was just what he wanted, and it must be like this, and it must be like that, and it must be like this. And that's probably one of my worst performances, because in the end I just wanted to get it done and get out there. And I know, you know, a lot of actors have been through that, but a good director will understand. It's a two-way thing. It's a chemistry thing, really. If you've got a good working relationship with your director, it brings out the best in you. Some directors are brilliant at just bringing out the best in people. They just leave it to the actor. And I think Clint Eastwood, I watched a documentary, and when Clint Eastwood has done a great big outdoor scene, there could be a car chase and all sorts going off and guns going everywhere, Clint will be watching this going on in his monitor, and after a couple of takes he'll just say, okay, let's move on. But some directors want to do it again and again and again and keep doing it. And if you overdo it as an actor, in the end your performance starts to drop, because you're just getting a bit sick and tired of doing the same thing endless times. Sometimes it can be a technical reason, and that's fine, so you keep up the concentration and you do it. But if everyone does their job properly, the director, the actor, the crew, everyone, it just meshes together, and you generally get it within 1 or 2 takes. So you know, it can be quite straightforward if everyone's meshed together. But you can't really bottle that. So I think for, you know, ultra famous programs or sitcoms that have worked so well, the chemistry is just right, and you can't sort of necessarily get that right from day one. It's something that just happens to gel.
Talking about chemistry just being right, because I'm a positive person, I'll talk about the positive rather than the negative ones, and also as well I wouldn't really talk about negative things within the industry. But I know that some people have been to groups where there's been like a group of actors who always work together, and they kind of felt the outsider going in. I won't ask you about those type people, but have you worked with, I don't know if Eastenders is one of them, or other companies where you've just suddenly felt really welcomed, and any guest actor that's coming in, they kind of really make them feel part of the team? And which companies were those?
I think on the whole, most of them, to be quite honest, because like I was saying earlier, you're an important part, an important cog in that whole machine on that day. Might just be 1 day, might be 3 days, but you're an important cog on that day. And what I've learned over the years, the crew, the directors, the everyone involved, including your fellow actors, are always very welcoming. And there's no point in them being the other way. I mean, yes, I've come across 1 or 2, and you know, when we're having a drink pool, I'll tell you who they were. But
yeah,
but I've come across a few who I would never want to see again, whether they've been in theatre or a TV show. And every actor will come up against that. But I'm always nice to everybody, so you know, you generally, most of them, because people often ask me, said, "Oh, you know, when you working alongside someone very famous, can they be difficult?" And you know, apart from just one or two, and I'm going back over 24 odd years, maybe just the odd one or two, but other than that, 99.9% of them are lovely people, and they're all there just the same as I am, doing a job. So there's no point being nasty in life, is there? You don't get the best out of people by being that. It can be a bit intimidating because, of course, like going into Eastenders, you're surrounded by people that have known each other. They're like a proper family. They know all the crew, and hi Dave, how are you? Yeah, all right, blah blah blah. And you're not going to get that straight off, but that's like going to work. You know, if you went to take a new job in an office or something, you're not immediately in on the in jokes, and if they're nice people, they'll welcome you in. But it's in their interest to be welcoming and polite and nice, because it gets the best out of you. You want they need actors to be relaxed, not tense for no reason at all. No, on the whole, I think it's they're generally very welcoming.
Fantastic. So we mentioned The Suspicious of Mr. Whicher. I was also noticed that you're in Wycliffe. Can you remember much about? Cause I used to love Wycliffe when I used to watch it much younger. Do you remember much about that Cornish detective program?
That was another memory that you reminded me of. That was shot. That was a beautiful day's filming. The backdrop was St. Michael's Mount. Lovely director on that one. Very welcoming. They were particularly welcoming, I remember. As sometimes you remember the ones which were extraordinarily welcoming. And the Wycliffe crew and the first and everyone were delightful. And they put me up in a really lovely hotel down that part of Cornwall. And I said, would it be possible? I mean, I'm quite happy to pay for it. You know, could I bring my wife along? I was married at the time, and you know, she stop over, and they went, yes, no problem at all. And I was quite prepared to pay extra for her being in the hotel, but the TV company covered it all. Weren't worried about that. And the director took it and gave us dinner afterwards, and we had a couple of beers with the director afterwards. But that was a great fun. So I played an auctioneer in that one. And there were about 50 extras, including the main actress who had to win the bid, which set up the plot. So it was right at as that opened, as the show opened, all the music and the camera. They used to do loads of wide shots in Wycliffe, lovely scenic shots, and you saw St. Michael's Mount in the background, and then the camera lands on me as the auctioneer. Lot number 10 and blah blah blah, and away I went and did the scene. And the director was actually, I think if I remember right, the director was just sitting slightly off camera below me. So he was in my eye line a tiny bit, watching on his monitor, because I think we were at a proper auctioneer's setup. And we did it. And we did it about 2 or 3 times, and he shot it from different angles. I do remember him. He kept saying at the end of each one, at the end of each take, he kept going, don't change anything. So we did it about 4 or 5 times because they shot it from different angles. But yeah, that was fun. That was good fun. You get to go on a nice location. Sometimes you don't, but on the whole, I like that whole process of, well, we're going to a different studio or a different part of the country, or being flown abroad to shoot a commercial or something. That's why I love film and TV. I love that whole process.
So I have a question here. So hi, Paul Mark. I'm late, but wanted to know if you have a favourite role. We sort of might have covered that, but one spring to mind that you have something that you think, yeah, I love that. I think EastEnders was mentioned, but anything else?
Film, that was one of my favourites. I think the Mr. Whicher one was a character that I can do very well. That kind of slightly iffy. I love characterful parts, and as you know, expression they call certain actors character actors. I don't know quite why that came about, but I suppose apparently, according to the casting directors, I fit that role. According to my agent, I fit that mantle of being a character actor. So I like playing characters that are completely different from me. And it doesn't really matter what I'm doing. If I'm playing a completely different role, if I'm playing someone who's emotionally very upset. I mean, I did an episode of Doctors not that long ago. And that was a character that was quite a straight role for me, and someone who was quite sad and quite emotional. And I enjoyed playing characters like that, not just on TV, on stage as well. I love doing comedy. That's really my forte. But I guess, what can I think? I guess if the character I have loved playing, which I played once many years ago, is Fagin. And yeah, I do that for free if anyone's watching. I would love to play Fagin in the musical, or in or better still, in a Dickensian film version of Oliver. If anyone's watching, that would be good, wouldn't it? Next Christmas, let's do.
Would be good, yeah. I can see that being next Christmas. Get our pens out and start writing to make sure you get that part.
I will be available, my dear. Yeah, no,
Excellent.
great fun to play him.
So what the question is that I'm always curious about, and I think I've got the idea of it, but you get people that are known as like classical actors, you get people known that are method actors. Can you just explain the difference, what on earth people are talking about?
Well, I'm not a method actor. I can tell you a very well-known story which highlights the difference, which involves Dustin Hoffman, who is a method actor, and a very, very good one. I don't decry method actors at all, but it's not my bag. There's the Meisner technique, and it's all about connecting with your inner soul and being that person. And if you're going to play someone who's freezing cold, get freezing cold, otherwise they can't really do it. And I think it was in Marathon Man, the film Marathon Man, with Dustin Hoffman, and Laurence Olivier was playing an ex-Nazi war criminal scientist or dentist. And the scene where they first meet is in Central Park. So Sir Lawrence is taken out in Central Park, and Dustin apparently, I mean, this is the story as I know it anyway, is where is Mr. Hoffman? And it was getting very freezing cold. It was done in the winter. And finally, Dustin turns up about 20 minutes later, sweat pouring off him because he's portraying a marathon man. So he wanted to portray that he was out of breath. And then he's been, he said, I've been running around Central Park, Sir Lawrence, to get myself out of breath. And apparently, so the story goes, Laurence Olivier put his hand on Dustin's shoulder and said, dear boy, much easier to act. And, that kind of really, in a nutshell, tells that story. When I did that scene with Dustin Hoffman in that film we were talking about earlier, it was on the tip of my tongue to ask him if that story was true. But finally, about halfway through the day, one of the guys who's been working with him a lot, so I'm dying to ask him about this story. He said, I wouldn't ask him if I were you. He hates it. Apparently he hates being asked about that story. But apparently it's one of these sort of actory folklore stories that's going around. So in answer, direct answer to your question, that little anecdote kind of highlights that really. Is method actors tend to put themselves, I think, through hell sometimes to be that person. I feel quite confident if I had to play. There was an actress that nearly died hugging an ice cube because the scene was out in the Antarctic. Wow. And she actually ordered in a massive block of ice, and before each take she practically nearly killed herself with frostbite and hypothermia because she wanted to hug onto it and be and all this business. And I think one can act those scenes out.
Yeah, absolutely. The one format we haven't mentioned yet is radio, and I know you've done some radio work. And do you enjoy it, or is it not enough visualizations?
I can't remember how many now, but I've done 2 or 3, I think, Radio 4 plays, and one of them I remember we shot it I think it was done in a house in Brighton, and I think it was used for Radio 4 Play of the Day or whatever it was at the time. So we all sat around and read the script and then various actors went off into different rooms recording different parts of the play at any one time. But that was good fun. It's very straightforward because you're just reading from a script. So I'd say that's possibly, might be talking out of turn here, but I think that was one of the most straightforward jobs I've ever had, doing radio. There's nothing like it. I mean, any actor, actors, when they say they get nervous or get stage fright or nervous about a role or anything, is, for me personally, the only thing I get nervous about is remembering lines. Because, and I put the work in and I learn the lines, but one is always nervous about just going on that stage, that first couple of pages, getting it out the way, and then you can, if you concentrate and if you learn it, what I've learned over the years, you've got to learn it absolutely inside out. So it's automatic. But I don't always apply it when I'm doing my murder mysteries. There's been times rushing on in the wrong costume or said the wrong thing or whatever, but that's all part of it. Like pantomime, really, it doesn't matter then so much. That's all part of it. The audience like it if you go wrong. But
yeah. The only acting that I've done has been at school, and I used to find, for some bizarre reason, the ones where I was not so sure on the lines, I would always act better. I've got no idea if that's what you were saying about earlier, knowing it too well, but I always felt there was an extra spark.
Were you playing a tense character?
Slightly nervous one. It was a play called By the Skin of Our Teeth. I don't know whether you've heard of that at all. No. And it's very bizarre. 1930s play about the coming of the second ice age. And in the original one, the guy at school was somebody who let us do it the way he wanted to. Is that I was supposed to be a rather confident character, even though I was supposed to be a 12-year-old married boy, and it was very bizarre play. But I kind of changed it because I could see within it that there were lines that if I played it nervously instead of confident, it would actually create a laugh rather than it be the other way around. So I played it slightly nervously that way. So that's probably might be something to do with why it worked and stuff. So yeah, but all interesting.
Who knows? I've some actors who don't like to learn the whole script. They'll just brush it over and then they just want the gist of it. And some directors like that as well. But on the whole, I think you owe it to the writer to learn the lines.
Absolutely.
I mean, so some directors aren't that fussy. On TV, there's always a script supervisor who's there with, it's normally a lady's role, is there with her folder. And you might have said, I have to tax the car tomorrow morning. And I might have said the line, in the morning, I've got to tax the car. Oh, no, actually, Mark, it's in the morning, I'm going to tax the car. Oh, right, okay. In the morning, I'm going to tax the car. It's actually in the morning, I'm going to tax the car. Well, I think on the whole, I feel sorry for those script supervisors because quite often they'll go weighing in to say that, and the director, no, don't worry about that. That's fine. Don't worry about that. Keep that away. We need to do another take.
Yeah,
they have a pretty thankless task, those script supervisors. But by God, they're well handy when doing a scene. You think, oh, hang on a minute, what is that line? And you can just turn to the script supervisor and say, what's that line? Oh yeah, but they're there. They're there for you, and they know just when to be there and when not to be there. And they're very good, though. They know when to just kind of intervene and when not to intervene.
You also put together show reels for other actors. If you can explain about the process of that, because you've worked with all sorts of different actors doing that.
My company, we do these. Did we talk about filmmaking days? We'll come on to that.
Yeah,
we got time. But we do. I make video show reel. So I'll start again, Mark. Every actor now needs a video show reel, because the whole casting process has changed and speeded up dramatically over the years, to the point where, for commercial castings, you get you get a call 6 o'clock sometimes the night before, be in London for 10 o'clock the next day to go for an audition. So that's sometimes how quick it is. Not so much for television roles and TV character roles. They generally get a few days to learn the script and a bit of warning. But in answer to your question, to cast an actor, if they're going through the Spotlight directory, which is the main British Spotlight casting directory, and a casting director sees an actor and thinks, Paul, he looks just right for what the director's brief is. And then they'll go down and scan the CV. Right, he's done a bit of TV. That's good. We'll pull him in. Now, if you've done no experience, but you might be perfect for the role, if they can see that you can do something, you've prepared a show reel, they can play that and think, oh, he's quite good, or she's quite good. Yeah, he'd be good for that. It might only be for a few lines, but at least you've just proven you can do stuff to camera, you can play a role, and you look and sound right, and they pull you in. Or they'll if the director has taken time off from the set to cast the role of the cab driver, who might only have a couple of scenes, or small role, one-ep characters, he'll come in and the cast director says, okay, I've shortlisted it down. Here are the 4 or 5 actors I've got in mind to play such and such a role, and then he can sometimes watch your show reel and say, yeah, well, get him in or her in, So that it's vital these days for an actor to have a show reel. But of course, when they've been to drama school, they've done their 3 years and come out and haven't got any footage or any experience. You have to start somewhere. So I sometimes write scenes and create scenes between 2 contrasting actors, so they share the cost between themselves. And we do a very short 1-minute scene, and I write the scene based on their casting type. So that, because that's how we're cast on our casting type, and there's no point playing against type unless you're ultra famous. But just almost be yourself, and you can be angry, you can be funny, you can be sad, but it's your casting type, your general character. That's who they want to see come through the audition room door. So I write little scenes and shoot them as just like a TV production, really. Shoot them both ways, reverses and all sorts. I've shot monologues for actors. Some actors like to do a monologue, and I've shot monologues. So it's just creating show reels for other actors who are just starting out and haven't got any TV experience, or they've done a lot of theatre and just haven't got round to doing any TV. So it can be quite useful for them.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about some of these the filming projects that you've done. If you can explain those ones, that'd be absolutely marvellous.
In respect of what, with my company?
Yeah, with your company, yeah.
Well, we've got a product which is a filmmaking day, and we split the company up into teams, and each team is issued with a camera kit, a really good camera kit, I might add, very full professional camera kit, boom mic and all sorts, and they have to appoint their camera person, their sound person. They write a little script, and they have to get it all filmed in a day by a set time. And then I have a team of guys that will edit that together, and 1 member or 2 members from each team can sit in on the editing process for half an hour, and they just make a little 2 or 3 minute, it might be a commercial, it might be a radio commercial, it might be a TV commercial, or it might be something that's to do with a product from their work, or a new process of work that they have to do in a different way. It can just to highlight that, or it's just an all-out fun. So we, okay, team A is doing a gangster film, team B is doing a carry-on film, and cowboys and Indians, Star Wars, all this kind of thing. Sometimes we provide the costumes, or they bring their own costumes, which I prefer. And they make the most unbelievably rude sometimes. Pack it with all their own in jokes, and they're doing all the work, they're doing all the entertaining, and they love doing it. They love the process of writing the script, performing in front of the camera. And what's really good is there's always like the office mouse who just wants to sit in the background, and by the end of the day she or he will come up to me and say, I wouldn't mind, could you ask my team if I could be included in it? I say, yeah. And my role, and I provide actors to help them through the process. They don't act in the films, they just guide them through and explain how the processes work and make sure each team gets it in the can, as it were. And quite often you'll find the quieter member of the unit suddenly wants to perform in front of the camera, but they want their chance to shine as well. So it's a great team building thing because everyone gets a role and everyone has to do something. If someone doesn't, just horrified at being in front of the camera, they could be a script writer or be the camera person, be behind the camera. So there's something for everyone in that. That's a great event. It's my favorite event, actually.
Amazing. There's a little question. Well, I was saying from Brenda's account, but it looks like just a number. So if you can just type in what that was about, Brenda, that would be really helpful. So Mark, is there any parts that you would absolutely love to get your teeth into in the next sort of coming years? You mentioned Fagin. Is there any other ones that you think that would really suit my character? I think Mark's actually dropped out for a second, so I'm just going to ask him to rejoin. So, but it's been a really interesting chat so far. So thank you everybody who's been watching. Do put up any other questions. I'll just say to Mark, thank goodness I kept my phone going, that he just needs to join again. Yeah, it's just me. So, okay. At this point, I would usually, when I talk about my NLP and my hypnotherapy work, I would usually talk a little bit about that, or my past life regressions that I do, but that's not really my field of expertise or anything like that. So I'm just curious to know, the people watching here, has anybody been any roles themselves of anything that they've been in and really enjoyed? So whilst we're trying to get this back on, so kind of feels like live television here with something going down. So okay, I think Mark will have to reboot. I was actually bringing it slowly to a close then anyway, so I might bring it to a close soon, but just ask your questions. So away. Mark's computer's frozen, so he's gonna have to reboot at the moment. I was literally going to bring it to the close anyway. So I hope you've been enjoying the live stream. So let me get on up here. And I was trying to text and watch my spelling. So Von, sorry I haven't been involved in the conversation. I've been listening in the background. Company turned up. Very nice. So I'm hope you're having a nice time. Let's have a look here. Very interesting. Enjoying the conversation. And Susan, enjoyable. So as I'm just waiting for Mark to rejoin back onto this live stream, I was just going to, oh, there's another question here, so I'll just see what that is. Yes, I'm really enjoying this behind the scenes peek, especially finding out that veteran actors still get nervous. I'm terrified of being on stage. So it'll be really interesting to know when you've had to be on stage. And if there's anybody, maybe I might get it in because I do some NLP, hypnotherapy work. NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming. I can give some tools and techniques about making yourself feel less nervous when you're on the stage. So let's have a look at that. So I might get and mention those afterwards. My daughter wants to become a writer. This is very helpful. I'm really pleased that that's really helpful. And when your daughter does write something and hopefully goes through, I would be very much interested in knowing how she's getting on. So I'm sure that speaking to Mark might not be the last time. So, or actually Mark's just messaged me. So yeah, I can just see at the moment that he's rebooting. I will be watching back again later when company have left. It has been really interesting what I have heard. Thank you, and thank you. I'm glad that you found it really interesting. Let's just go back and find out. So regarding this question about feeling nervous, this comes from Amy Cuddy's TED Talk. After this, I do recommend that if you want to know about feeling more confidence just by the way you stand, go look at her TED Talk. Also as well, if you want to know more about Mark Kempner, put in Mark Kempner into YouTube. He's got his own YouTube channel. He's also got Trueview Events as well. But anyway, to make yourself feel more confident if you're getting up on stage, is to make sure that your body language is confident. Now, if acting, you're supposed to not be playing a confident person, that might not be the best thing, but most of us need to do like a presentation or something like that. So it's about expanding your body language. So putting your hands on your hips, because the mind and body do affect each other. And I think Mark's just getting back, so he'll be joining any second. So if you increase the size of your body language, just for a couple of minutes before going up to your presentation, that will make you feel more confident whilst you're getting up doing your presentation. Maybe I might do another little video at some point with some other tools and techniques to help make you feel a lot more confident. So I think Mark should be joining us any second here. But there is actually some books if anybody's nervous about getting on the stage. I've got an NLP book. It's up in my collection of books, and it's about performance and NLP, and in there's a load of more tools and techniques to make you feel more confident when you're performing. So yeah, do expand your body language and get into the mode of doing that several times as well, because researchers have found that when they've taken swabs from the people who've had very submissive, smaller body language, their testosterone is very low and their cortisol stress hormone is very high. However, if you're in a very dominant, very powerful pose, I just ask you will make yourself be a lot more confident in that situation. I'm just going to message my friend again so I get the StreamYard link. So I'm just going to invite, if I can. I've not actually been able to invite somebody back into the message before, so let me just see how I can do this. Is it that one there? Hopefully this is going to work for him. I do apologize for this, everybody. Is that the right one there? Yeah, so I've just sent him through the link, so I think he should be joining us again very shortly. So any other questions here at all? Anybody? Hopefully I should see Mark's face pop in the corner any second. This reminds me of the very famous Newsnight sketch. Well, not sketch, but it happened live on television. And they had David Dimbleby had to try and fill lots of different moments because they lost all footage. So he should be joining in. I can't see why he's not here live. How did I meet Mark, Susan? I met him at a business breakfast club because both of us do a networking event in Cheltenham. So yeah, he should be. Yeah, I'm here. And he's waiting for me to add, and I can't see him in the waiting studio at the moment, so that's interesting. Why he hasn't actually appeared again. So this is for, let's get this up. Tips on projecting your voice in the theatre. Very good. So I'll try and answer those as well. Now, where is he not coming up here? This is very bizarre. Why he's not coming into the studio this time. So I do apologise for this, everyone. I'm going to have to try and do a little phone call here and see if he pops up. So let's see if he's here. Bear me 1 second. Hello there. I don't know why you're not going up on the screen. That's very bizarre. It seems to be. It's weird. Oh dear. Right. So yeah, I'm here at the moment, and I'm just going to go to other options and see if I can see you on here at the moment, because it's very weird. Where people usually appear, it's not appearing at the moment. Yeah, that's really bizarre. So I'm just going to refresh. So I think what I'm going to have to do is probably bring this one to, sorry everybody who's seeing me at the moment, I'm going to have to probably bring this one to a close and see if we can restart it, because I can't see your face up here at the moment, Mark. So I'm going to restart it. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to rejoin and start a closure anyway. So if you just bear with me, I'll just see if I can get this going again. So I'll just speak to everybody who's watching here at the moment. So apologies for that. I don't really know what's happening here. I think I'm still going live. What I will do is I'm going to just start another broadcast just so we can finish off the two of us. It won't be very long, but if you can rejoin, that'd be really useful. I really thank everybody, all these questions that are coming up. But I don't know why Mark's not appearing here at the moment. That's not happened before. So I do apologise. Just give me about 2 or 3 minutes and then I'll be rejoining again on my YouTube.